Hello, welcome to Playthrough Board Games, and today I wanted to take you through a run-through of the Pathfinder Adventure card game. In particular, I wanted to focus on the Skull and Shackles set. This is the second board game, full board game, released by Paizo, based on the Pathfinder Adventure series. The theme behind this game is pirates. One of the major additions to the game are ships, which you get to captain. It's quite an exciting game, and I want to take you through the second adventure in the series and show you how it plays. The video is probably going to be quite lengthy, so you can skip parts or do whatever you want as you're watching through it, but I think it's worth seeing a full playthrough. We'll decide after we've played whether we're going to continue making videos on this series, but I like it a lot, and I hope you do too. One of the largest changes in Skull and Shackles is the addition of a ship which you captain. In this particular adventure, we began with a Class 0 ship. It's called Merchantman. And this ship can be upgraded if we defeat other ships during our journeys. Defeating other ships is very similar to defeating any other sort of Bane that appears during the adventure, and you'll see how that's done as we play through the game. And to describe a Bane, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. This is a skeleton monster, which is in the box and won't take part in this particular adventure. Skeletons are encountered in the location deck as you are exploring to complete particular objectives, as are other monsters. In order to defeat the skeleton, you need to have an 8 or greater combat check, which there are some rules to what type of combat check and what sort of weapons can be used to defeat the skeleton at the bottom of the card. The skeleton's immune to mental and poison traits, so if you attack with that, it doesn't hurt the skeleton. If the check to defeat has piercing or slashing, so if you have a sword, then the difficulty of this check is increased by 3. So you would go from a difficulty of 8 to a difficulty of 11. Normally when I play this game, I have 3 adventurers that I use to travel through the entire game, but for a playthrough I thought it would be easier to use 2. So I'm going to begin by showing you Olok, who is a male half-orc war priest, and you can see he has this outrageously large sword and kind of a pennant stuck to his back, but he's a very, very large fellow. If we look at some of his stats, we'll see he's very strong. So the way you tell he's strong is here. When Olok makes a strength check, he will roll a d12. If it's a melee strength check, he'll get a +1 to that roll. He is very clumsy and would probably fall down walking across a doorway. He gets a d4 for that. He's fairly hardy with a d8 +3 for a fortitude check. He's not very intelligent. He's fairly wise because he acts as our cleric. He's a war priest. And he's not very charismatic. In fact, he doesn't have any allies in his hand. The back of the card shows you what type of items a hero has. In this particular case, you can see that Olok has 4 weapons, 2 spells, 3 types of armor, 1 item, no allies, so he doesn't attract friends very easily, and 5 blessings. He's going to act as our fighter and our healer during this campaign. Our second hero is named Lyrianne. She's a female half-elf gunslinger, and one of the reasons I picked her is because of this new class, the gunslinging class. You can see she has 2 old pistols she carries in her hand. This will be important as we play through the game. She's excellent at ranged combat. And here is a view of her stats. She's not very strong, but she has a d8 +3 range for attack. She has mediocre constitution and intelligence, but she's also very wise. So this party working together isn't going to have a lot of problems with wisdom checks. However, they may have problems with charisma and acquiring additional allies, because neither is very charismatic. One of the things I failed to mention on Olok's deck is you see Lyrianne's hand size is 4. Your hand size is important because it also acts as your hit points. If you draw all the cards in your deck and then try to draw one more, and you can't, your hero dies. I tend to play with a little variant on that, where the hero's knocked out, that way we can use them in the next adventure, but hardcore people would say that's not really fair. I just have limited time to game. In terms of what's contained in Lyrianne's deck, she has 4 weapons, 2 armors, 2 items, 3 allies, so she has managed to make some friends, and 4 blessings. Let me say a little bit about blessings. Blessings generally allow you to roll an additional dice when making a check. Also, blessings act as a timer in this game. At the beginning of the game, you set 30 blessings aside, and at the start of each player's turn, you move one blessing to the discard pile. When you've run out of blessings and can no longer draw blessings from the deck, the game is over, and if you haven't won by that point, you lose. One of the interesting things about Pathfinder Adventure card games is that the game is set up for multiple adventures where you have different endpoints that you're trying to meet throughout the game. This particular time we'll be playing from the basic adventure set that comes with the Skull and Shackles game, and the adventure we'll be playing is Plunder and Peril. There are multiple scenarios for Plunder and Peril. I've already played island hopping with these characters, so we will not be going through the first adventure. We'll instead be focused on the second adventure, Rum Punch, which you see on the second line. Rum Punch has a story associated with it, and I'll show you the card. Here's the adventure itself, Rum Punch. The text of the adventure is at the bottom, and I'll read that to you. For many freedom-loving inhabitants of the Shackles, Caden Kalen is the only deity worth raising thanks in tankards to. Local Rum Punch festivals celebrate the god of freedom and another year of life and drink. It's a popular time to be in port, but also a dangerous one. And this card shows us the way we set up the adventure. I've already set up the adventure, but the locations that we'll be using are the docks, the House of Stolen Kisses, the Safe House, and the Ale House. We've selected those based on 1 player and 2 players. We will not have 3, 4, 5, or 6. Finally, there's a little bit of information on the back about how you complete this scenario. The villain in this adventure is named Nefty, and we'll have to defeat her in order to complete the adventure. There are also ruffians hidden throughout the decks in this adventure. During the scenario, when we close a location, we can attempt to acquire any allies left in that location deck. When you acquire one, we put the ally pile next to the scenario card. Before you attempt to check to defeat Nefty, you may put any number of allies from the ally pile into your hand. The sad thing is our adventurers aren't particularly skilled at acquiring allies. So let's see how this goes. And the reward for completing this adventure is we gain all the allies that are in the ally pile, which will allow us to make some selections at the end of the game. We'll begin this adventure with Olok, who will be adventuring into the Ale House. The Ale House has particular rules to it as well. When we acquire an ally, we can recharge it and draw a card. Again, this will be difficult for him, but we can try. And when we close, we summon and defeat the Henchman Ruffian. The goal of this adventure is to find and defeat our main antagonist, whose name is Nefty. And Nefty will have particular powers that we will need to overcome. To begin with, before we start the game, we need to draw 4 cards, so we know what Olok has in his hand. And as this is a cooperative game, we don't have to worry too much about other players seeing our cards. This isn't a bad hand. He has no spells, but he drew 2 blessings, which will enable him to roll an additional die for his checks, a chain shirt to prevent some damage to him, and a boarding axe, so he has a weapon. This allows him to use his melee skill, which remember is a d12 plus an extra 1d6. There are some additional components to this. If he's fighting a pirate, he gets another 1d6, and then he can discard the card to add another 1d4. And we'll put these here, and we know that they're available to him. We'll also go ahead and draw for Lyrian, who has a hand size of 4 as well. We're very interested in Lyrian's hand as well, because she can help Olok while he is adventuring through the Ale House, especially since she is a ranged fighter. She rolled a pistol. This allows her to use her attack skills very readily. She uses her dexterity or range skill, which she has skill in both of those, and she can bury this card to add another 1d10. The neat thing about Lyrian is she has some text that says, when a weapon has the firearm trait, if you would bury it or shuffle it into your deck, you may keep it and instead perform the required action with another card. So this means that she will be able to continue to use her pistol and gain that benefit from it. So let's begin with Olok and start moving through the Ale House. Each adventurer is allowed to flip 1 card from the quest deck. I'll show you a picture of the quest deck right now. At the beginning of their turn, this will be their first encounter. And then there are ways that an adventurer can move through other cards in the deck. First card that Olok encounters is an ally, Carver. This is an elf pirate. He doesn't have the ability to convince people to join his team very readily. So we're going to roll and just see. He needs a 6 charisma or diplomacy. Olok rolls a single d6 die. On a roll of 6 or more, he would win. He doesn't have any bonuses to this roll. He's going to give it just a straight up roll, and what do we get? We got a 6, and that means that he has actually acquired this ally. But we have to go back to the main card and remember what it said about allies. When you acquire an ally, put it in an ally pile next to this scenario card. So this doesn't actually go into his hand. It goes up at the top. Let's read what Carver does so we know what we can do in the future. This particular card allows you to discard this card to add 1d8 to your craft check. We can also discard it to explore a location. That was a fairly successful run. Olok walked into the alehouse and met Carver. Carver saw something that she liked in Olok, despite Olok looking like a horrible half-orc, green and very strong and with a scary sword. Carver decided to join Olok on his quest to identify what sort of trouble was occurring during the Rum Punch Festival. So that would normally complete Olok's turn. One thing I forgot to mention is that at the beginning of Olok's turn, we turn over one card from the blessing pile and put it in the blessing's discard. The card that's drawn is actually somewhat important. Blessing of the Gods allows us to use the powers that's on the card. It's on top of the blessing discard pile. In this case, the Blessing of Gorum would allow us to add 2 additional dice to any combat strength check. Now we're going to move on to Lyrian's turn. She is at the House of Stolen Kisses, and when she's here, when we acquire an ally, we discard a card. And then when we try to close this location, she needs to exceed a dexterity check, which she has an okay dexterity. She will not get a bonus because it is not her ranged check. She begins exploring and finds an illusory wall. This is a barrier card. You can tell by the yellow color, and there's text at the top that states it's a barrier card. For this particular roll, she needs to roll her intelligence or her wisdom plus perception. The good thing about Lyrian for this particular card is that she has a very high wisdom, and she gets a bonus to her perception skill. In order to defeat the card, she needs a 6. To roll a 6, we're going to get to roll 1d12 plus 2. That means she needs a 4 or greater in order to defeat this particular barrier. Let's roll and see what she gets. A 3. She did not defeat it. Since we failed to defeat the illusory wall, we need to shuffle it back into the deck. Anytime a Bane, which a Bane is a monster, a barrier, or any card that does bad things to you, it gets shuffled back into the deck. That means we don't know when we will encounter it again, and we don't know what we will encounter next. Lyrian, who searched through the House of Stolen Kisses for some clue as to loot or something special at this particular dock, was unable to find anything. However, she has the power of the gods behind her, and she's going to play the Blessing of the Gods, which allows her to explore this location again if she discards the card. So she discards this card. Remember, that counts as 1 hit point in a way. And she can't draw a card till the end of her turn. And she explores again. And in this case, instead of finding a Bane, a card that does something negative to you, she has found a spell. There's a chance that she can acquire this spell and use it. She has a d12 roll for her wisdom check, which you notice over here. It's a wisdom divine check. She doesn't get any bonuses for divine, but if she rolls a 6 or greater, she can put this card into her hand and use it during her turn. She'll have to banish it after she uses it, but that's okay. And she rolled, and her roll was unsuccessful again, a 2. Instead of inflict being shuffled back into the deck, it is instead put into the box, and it is gone from the game. So she met, while she was searching for something at the house, while she was searching for any clues as to gold or treasure at the House of Stolen Kisses, she walked right by a scroll that could have helped Olok and Lyrian on her quest, but failed to pick it up. She didn't recognize the magical properties of that scroll. And so we move on and go to Olok's turn. And one thing I didn't do at the beginning of her turn is put a blessing in the blessing deck. I find that to be one of the hardest things to remember. So remember to do that on each character's turn. It is now Olok's, and we will put a blessing into the discard pile. And now we'll begin Olok's next encounter. Olok has found another ally. In this case, it's a human cleric pirate. He would like to have this guy, obviously, because it's nice to have anybody that you find. He rolls, and he rolls a 2. The pirate, who is a boon, is put back into the box, and we will not get another chance to acquire him. So Olok failed on his roll. The guys aren't real happy about the way this is going, so he is also going to discard a card to continue on the adventure. Olok discards one of his Blessing of the Gods cards, and he draws the next card in the adventure deck, and it is another ally, a sailor, who again, he needs a charisma diplomacy check of 6. We're guessing this will not be successful. He got a 1. The card is put back into the box. So Olok is not making a lot of friends in his adventures. I think he's a little too gruff and maybe scary looking in order to convince people to come help him hunt for loot and gather treasure. That would be it for Olok's turn. He draws up, gets a Topaz of Strength, which makes him a little stronger if he ever encounters any monsters. And we move back to Lyrian's turn. One card comes off the top of the Blessing deck. Lyrian begins exploring the House of Stolen Kisses again and finds a large chest. This would be really, really nice to have. Notice, in order for Lyrian to succeed at defeating this barrier, she needs to roll a dexterity roll of 9 or greater, or a strength roll of 10 or greater. She has a dexterity of 8, so she cannot succeed on this check by herself. In order to succeed, we need to think about what Olok can do to help her, and what she can do to help herself. Looking at her hand of cards, one of the most important cards in her hand is this deckhand. You can recharge this card to add 1d6 to a non-combat strength or dexterity check. So that's one of the things that she will do in order to try to acquire this chest. We'll also use Olok. Olok has a talent. When another character attempts any check, you may display any number of blessings and weapon. For each card displayed, add 1 to the check. But he can only display these cards once. That's okay, because the only person who can do this is Lyrian for him. So he will display his boarding axe and his Blessing of the Gods to add 2 to the check. So we have a better chance now of defeating this barrier. We have 1d8 for her skill. We have 1d6 since she discarded the deckhand, and she gets +2 due to Olok. So let's see what the roll is. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is perfect. She has defeated this barrier. Per the instructions on the card, we get to roll 1d4 and add that many random weapons from the box to our hand. So we roll, and we get a 4. And I'll draw the weapons and show you what they are. When Lyrian opens the chest, she finds a morning star, a cutlass, a quarterstaff, and a harpoon. 2 of these weapons are elite, the morning star and the harpoon. The cutlass and the quarterstaff are basic and can be picked by any character. Let's look at these a little closer to see what they do. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or range skill plus 1d6. Add another 1d8 if the Bane has the aquatic trait. You may put the monster on top of the location deck if it came from one, rather than getting damaged, I assume. Then Morningstar. This can be piercing or bludgeoning. That's good for using against skeletons and the like. That was a good barrier for her to identify. All of these cards are put into her hand, and she will need to get rid of some cards in her hand at the end of her turn. She has to keep her hand size at 4. The large chest itself is put back into the box and is considered a defeated barrier. Right now she's covered with weapons, so we have to decide, are we going to do anything to continue? Oh, and one additional thing. She played the deckhand, as you can see here, to complete this check. Because she used its first power, she gets to recharge it. so it goes into the bottom of her deck. The deckhand helped her identify a big stash of treasure. So now it is the end of her turn. We don't have any way to continue this particular adventure, and we have to discard down to 4 cards. We'll begin by discarding the cutlass and quarterstaff. We then need to discard 1 more card. Which of these choices I would probably pick I'd pick the Morning Star because it's a strength-based weapon. Though that will be one that we share with Olak at some point in the future, I believe. We turn over our next blessing, and then we move to Olak, who begins his exploration. And he finds a Sapphire of Intelligence. This one is probably not worth rolling for. Olak's intelligence is a 1d4. He would need to roll 2 1d4s, so he would need to be able to discard a card. He could use Blessing of the Gods, but this is not one that I think we're that interested in. He rolls, and he gets a 2. So Olak, unfortunately, sees this nice-looking sapphire lying in the mud as he's searching around, and he ignores it because he's not that interested in money and he doesn't recognize that this is valuable. In fact, he just sees it as a rock. That's because he's not very intelligent. So that's it for his turn. We are not making the type of progress I had hoped. Let's continue on. We will have Lyrianne explore one more time. We'll begin by turning over a blessing, of course. And she has found a cabin boy. This is Charisma Diplomacy. She actually has a chance to get this, to convince this guy to join our side. He's a human pirate. She needs a 4 Charisma. She has a 1d6. She rolls, and she gets a 3. That is not exactly what we wanted. So the cabin boy is put into the box as well. And we still haven't found anything worthwhile. Lyrianne couldn't even convince this boy that our quest was worth taking on. Flip another card. Olak, do something good for us. We draw the top card, and we have found something useful. It is a ruffian. Ruffians are henchmen, and henchmen, when you defeat a henchman, it allows you to close the location deck, or attempt to close the location deck. This particular enemy has the difficulty to defeat is increased by the adventure deck number, which we don't have any adventure deck numbers because this is the basic set of quests. After you act, if your check to defeat did not have the swashbuckling trait, bury 1 item or weapon of your choice from your discard pile. Interestingly, we don't have an item or weapon in our discard pile. If defeated, you may immediately attempt to close the location. So, Olak gets a d12 for fighting against this guy. He has to defeat a combat check of 7. Let's put the ruffian down and look to see what Olak is going to do. He will use the boarding axe, which allows him to roll 1d6 extra. And it has the swashbuckling trait, so we don't even have to worry about that other issue. And if you notice, it says that if the Bane has the pirate trait, we get to roll an additional 1d6. This one does have the pirate trait. So, Olak has a +1 to his melee attack. I believe we're going to go straight up and try to defeat this with 1d12 and 2d6. We have a pretty good chance of getting a 7 or greater. We roll, and we defeat him handily. That's 13 versus 7 and 14 if you count his strength bonus. So the ruffian is defeated. And now we look at the location card and see what we need to do to close. Summon and defeat the henchman ruffian. So, Olak will play again. Notice that he did not have to discard his boarding axe. And he can use his boarding axe again, I believe. So, let's hope that our luck holds out. We're going to roll a d12 and 2d6, and we roll. And it did. We got a d8. We got an 8 on the d12, a 6, and a 3. That puts us at 17 plus 1, 18, which handily defeats the ruffian 7. That means that the ruffian is put back into the box, and we can close the location. There is a when closing statement on the location. When permanently closed, on closing you may recharge an ally from your discard pile. Olok does not have allies. So, when he was searching through the alehouse, he found this ruffian who jumped him and tried to knock him out. Then, after he defeated the first ruffian, a second ruffian came up to try to help his brother and failed. And interestingly, we now get to look through the location deck, and there was some really good stuff. Maybe not the Sea Drake. It's strange to think about a Sea Drake attacking the alehouse, but I guess it was possible. These two barriers would actually have been nice. And the Falcata was a really, really nice sword. But all of these go back into the box. There are no allies, so we don't get to put them in the ally pile. The Falcata is back in the box. And we continue our journey. It's Lyrian's turn again. We turn the first card over on the Blessing deck, and she begins her exploration. And what does she find? That illusory wall. Okay, she should be able to defeat this. I'm going to give her one more straight up chance. She needs, in order to defeat this wall, she needs a 4 or better on a d12. There we go, the wall is defeated. The advantage of defeating the illusory wall is that, if defeated, examine the top card of the location deck and return it to either the top or bottom of the deck. So that allows us to move through the deck a little more quickly. It is a surgeon, who is an elite. Because of the wording on this quest about being able to add these people to the ally pile at the end, I'm going to put her on the bottom of the deck this time. That is it for Lyrian's turn. She doesn't have anything she can really do, and she's not going to discard a card right now. So we have the Blessing deck move up one more, and we move back to Olok. Olok is going to change locations. He would probably be most interested in this location, the safe house. The reason being that he would not do a very good job at the docks, because in order to close he needs to bury an ally, and he has no allies. Therefore, we will draw the first card from this deck, Lookout Duty. This is a wisdom perception check, so he's keeping his eye out for dangers. If he defeats it, he gets to look at the top card of the barrier's location deck, and he can encounter it if it's a monster. Ooh. We also take 1 structural damage if we fail to our ship. Structural damage is interesting in that players can discard a card to prevent structural damage from getting through to the ship. If this ship receives any structural damage, it is wrecked, and then the item that was placed under the ship at the beginning of the quest is discarded at the end of Olok's turn. So he would likely, or maybe Lorraine would likely, discard 1 card in order to prevent damage from occurring. Now, Olok's wisdom is actually quite high, mildly high. He's allowed to roll a d8 for a wisdom check. Lookout Duty is a barrier that needs to be defeated in order for him to continue to explore the deck. Therefore, Olok is going to play the Blessing of the Gods and attempt to defeat this location. He only gets a d8 roll, and the roll itself requires a d6 to defeat. So he will roll 2 d8s, and he does not get any bonuses for this. So let's hope he can do a pretty good job. A 5 and a 4, that is successful. So Lookout Duty is defeated. He managed to identify the next item in the location deck. We can look at the top card of the barrier's location. If it's a monster, we can encounter it. And no structural damage is dealt to our ship, which is good, though that can be prevented by discarding 1 card from your hand. So this goes into the box, and we draw the top card, and it is not a monster, so it is not encountered. What we saw was a veteran seafarer, it looks like, an old salt, and we will encounter him on our next turn. It is the end of Olok's turn. He draws a card. It is a spell. We move another card from the Blessing deck and continue on to Lyrian. draws her card. It is Cure, which is a magic spell, and it allows a player to put cards from their discard pile back into their deck. Neither player is hurt very badly right now. I'm not too concerned about getting this. We will roll a d12. There aren't many monsters in this particular adventure. And she got a 3. That is a failure. So Cure is put into the box. Larianne did not recognize as she passed the temple that the gods would bless her if she were just simply to walk in and give her the ability to heal herself or Olok. So that's a loss for this turn. We flip another card, move on to Olok, who continues to explore the safe house. Now, I didn't read what the safe house allows you to do. I may take advantage of this. At the start of your turn, you may recharge a card to examine the top card of the location deck. Then you may shuffle it. So I am going to recharge Topaz of Strength. I already know what's on the top, and I'm not interested in that guy. And then I can take and shuffle the deck without looking at the cards in the deck, because we don't know where the main bad guy is in this game. And at the end of this, Olok draws another card. Oh, wow, that's impressive. It is Old Salt. Olok is not going to have any success with this, and we don't have anything really that we can do to help him. Olok is unlikely to have much success with this particular ally. He only gets a d6 for his roll, which means he cannot succeed. He rolled a 6. He almost convinced the Old Salt to come along with him, but then the Old Salt realized he's an orc. So he goes back into the box. We were not successful in that particular portion of the quest. And we move on to Larianne. Larianne draws a card. It's an Acolyte. These were in the original game as well. Charisma, Diplomacy, or Arcane Divine. We do not have very good stats on any of those, and she needs to roll a d6 to convince this person to come along, and she did it. So Larianne is able to convince the Acolyte to join our group. The Acolyte, because of the rules for this adventure, gets put into the ally pile, and we continue on to Olok's turn. Olok once again explores the safe house. Oh, and he found a parrot. The parrot is interesting. If you would fail a check by 4 or less, you may bury this card to ignore the result and re-roll the dice. You must take the second result. I actually like this card a lot, and I might want it to go into Larianne's deck. It's a wisdom check, so Olok gets a d8. He's going to go ahead and play a Blessing of the Gods to get a second d8. And he's going to attempt to catch this parrot. The way he's going to do it is he's going to talk calmly to the parrot and then catch it in the, maybe even soothe it to sleep. Let's see what happens. It is successful. Olok's calm, brutish orc voice has convinced the parrot to stay with us. And the parrot is put into the ally deck. And that is it for Olok's turn. We continue on to Larianne. We've got to start making some progress, guys. Come on, something. Oh, and she has found Nefti Unwesha, the human smuggler. Wow. Okay, let's see what Nefti can do. Nefti has a number of interesting powers. Before you act, choose a card from your hand and shuffle it into a random open location deck. The way I determine a random open location deck is I actually roll a die, and we'll do that in a minute. You may reveal any number of allies. For each ally revealed, add 1 to your check to defeat. So we need a Charisma Diplomacy check of 13. There is absolutely no way. I am not totally sure we're going to be able to defeat this person ever. Do we have anything we can do to get away from this person? We could use the safe house to move to a different location. We will consider that. I think we can use allies here to help defeat her, but we do not have much charisma or diplomacy. Put any number of allies from the ally pile into your hand. So we could put all of these allies into our hand. What would that give us? Would that get us anywhere near where we need to be? She gets a d6. We do not have anything else to enhance our capability here. I did not realize that this was a charisma-based skill check. We can raise our thing by 2, and then by 3, so we get +5. Still not enough to defeat her. Let's use the power of the safe house to run away from her. Any character at another location may banish a card to evade an encounter and move here. So we are going to go ahead and banish our powder horn for now. Banish means that the card gets put back into the box. Since this is a basic card, we can reclaim it at the end of the adventure, so I'm okay with that. So I'm going to put the powder keg back in the box. I'm going to take Nefti and Wesha, and we did not end up losing to her, so we do not have to move her around. I am going to go ahead and shuffle her. We avoided that encounter. So Lyrianne is now at the safe house. And she has to reset her hand. She draws a card. It is a blessing of the gods. We now know that we need to get more blessings of the gods so that we can defeat the main bad guy. I like the surprise of these adventures, but it can be difficult as well. Okay, we draw another blessing. We're going to keep hunting because we need to see if we can close these other 2 locations and then move on through. One other thing I missed that I think I need to do is, because Nefti had the ability to force me to shuffle one of my cards into a random deck, I think I need to do that prior to escaping. There are 3 open locations. I will make the docks 1 or 2, the house of stolen kisses 3 or 4, and the safe house 5 or 6. We roll. It's a 4, so it gets shuffled into the house of stolen kisses. Since I picked a basic dagger, I'm not too awfully concerned about it. Again, I can reclaim that dagger at the end of the adventure as it's a basic card. But we now know where the main bad guy is, and we continue on. We draw our next blessing, and Olok continues with his exploration of the safe house, and he has encountered Man Overboard. This doesn't bode well. And this is sort of a very negative barrier card rather than a treasure card like we've seen before. If undefeated, display this card next to a random character. At the start of each character's turn, the character next to the card must succeed at a Constitution or Fortitude check. Now, we would prefer for Olok to get this card if anybody does, but this is a Dexterity check, which is unfortunate because Olok only has a 1d4. I'm guessing he's going to fail. We're going to roll. There's no way he can succeed. He rolled a 4. Not good enough. I'm going to make it where a 1 to 3 is Lyrianne and a 4 to 6 is Olok. A 4. So this goes on Olok. This is good. At the start of each character's turn, the character next to this card must succeed at a Constitution or Fortitude 7 check to banish this card. Okay. So Olok has fallen overboard, and we must try to help him get back on board. Olok will try at the beginning of Lyrianne's turn. It is now Lyrianne's turn. Olok is attempting a Fortitude check. 7. He has a Fortitude of +3, so he needs a 4 or greater on a d8. He gets a 2. He is not successful, so he has to bury the top card of his deck, which is a boarding pike. It goes underneath his card. And we continue on. Lyrianne is also at the safe house, and she will reveal the top card. It is Chainmail. Constitution and Fortitude. She gets a +1 to her Fortitude check, so there's a chance that she will be able to pick up this Chainmail. She rolls, gets a 4. The Chainmail is hers. She finds Chainmail lying around the safe house. Nobody seems to want it, or at least no one's around who owns it, so she decides to take it for herself. It goes into her hand. And she now has 5 cards in her hand, so she will need to discard 1 card or do something else special if it's the end of her turn. Lyrianne will go ahead and use a Blessing of the Gods to try to find the leader of this particular deck. Let's see if she's successful. Aha! She found a ruffian, and that's exactly what we wanted. Because now we can defeat this pile. To defeat the ruffian, she is going to use her pistol. And I wanted to talk to you about the pistol and remind you of its power. This is her first combat check. She can use her dexterity or range skill, which is a D8. She also gets a D6 for using a weapon. And she can bury this card to add another D10. Now, the neat thing about her is she has this ability that she can, if you would bury or shuffle a card into your deck, you may keep it and instead perform the required action with another card. So we just drew this chainmail that we don't really need right now. So we are going to bury the chainmail underneath Lyrianne and use a D10 to try to, an extra D10 to try to defeat this villain. I think we should succeed. We need with her bonus, we need a 4 or more. We get plenty. That's a 23 plus 3, a 26. The ruffian is split into small, tiny pieces. And the ruffian gets put back into the box. We automatically get to close this location. We get to take the quartermaster and add her to our ally deck. Oh, no, we have to attempt to bring her into our group. Oh, that magic chain shirt would have been nice. So, these cards go back into the box. And we get to attempt to acquire the quartermaster. We are not going to be successful at this, I believe. We need to roll a d6. We will have Olak reveal his boarding axe and his longsword, which gives us +2. That means we need to roll a 6 or greater. We rolled a 4. We were not successful. The quartermaster goes back into the box as well. We're going to continue to hold on to our Blessing of the Gods, and we're going to hope that Olak gets one on his turn. Now, it is Olak's turn, and he has to decide where he's going to go. First of all, he has to do his man overboard. He gets the fortitude check again. He has a d8. He needs a 4 or better. He rolls, and he got a 6. He is no longer overboard. We have managed to pull him up out of the dock area. But interestingly, he wasn't on a ship, so I do not know why he was swimming in the docks or at the safe house. But he is now safe, and he can move to his next location. He will move to the docks because it's the only place still open that does not have the main bad guy. So we draw the top of the deck, and it is a Swamp Ghoul. This is an elite. The Swamp Ghoul is immune to the mental and poison traits, and we have to bury the top card of our deck, then reset our hand, and end our turn if we lose. A combat check of 11. We should be able to do this. We have our boarding axe and our longsword. This person is not anything special. Olak is going to use his longsword, which gives him plus a d8 to his roll. He also gets a d12 for his strength. Olak is going to add his magic weapon spell to this check, which gives him an extra d4 and the magic trait. Doesn't matter that much for the magic trait, but it will make it a little easier to defeat the Swamp Ghoul. He can then try to recharge this rather than discard it. So we need an 11 or better. With his strength bonus, we need a 10 or better. He rolls. He got plenty. 18, 21, 22. That's successful. He's now going to try to recharge rather than discard his magic weapon. He gets a d8 roll for that, and he has a divine bonus. So he needs a 2 or better. 7. This is recharged rather than discarded. The Swamp Ghoul is defeated, and we continue on. He resets his hand, so he gets to draw up. That's a Blessing of the Gods. That's what we need. Now we have 2 Blessings of the Gods, so we should be able to defeat this person. But in order to defeat the person, we have to bury an ally. Lyrianne has an ally in her hand. She's going to move over here And she's going to let Olok be the one who tries to defeat the main bad guy. So Lyrian explores, and she finds a barrier. Summon and encounter a random ship or a random monster. And we happen to be on our ship right now. Our ship is docked at the docks. That's what this particular adventure calls for. Because our ship is docked, that means that we are on board. And so we will need to encounter a random ship. These are the 6 ships from the base set. We will roll a die to determine which one we encounter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We roll. We get a 6. We are encountering the sea chanty. The sea chanty is quite interesting. To defeat this, we either need a wisdom roll or a charisma roll. We are definitely going to be trying for a wisdom roll. We have a d12 for that. We can reveal any number of allies. For each ally revealed, we get to add 3 to our check to defeat it. That, we actually have 1 in our hand. So this is going to be a fairly easy ship to defeat, I believe. I'm going to put it here. Famous last words, I know. We're going to go ahead and reveal our Heartbreak Henchman. He's a pirate. That gives us 3 plus to our roll. That means that we need to roll a 3 on a d12. And we got a 12. We have defeated the pirate ship. In this particular case, we don't get to add the ship to our fleet. We instead get to draw a Plunder Card, which is kind of neat. Plunder Cards work by rolling a d6 and looking at a table in the rule book, and I'll show you the table in a minute, where a particular type of item is pulled based on the number you roll. Here's the Plunder table. Let's see what we get. We got a 1, and that gives us a weapon, which we will draw randomly from the deck, stick underneath our ship. So we do not know what's under there until later, which is an interesting mechanic. I guess we found a crate or something. So Lyrian has defeated her Bane. She is not going to use any Blessing of the Gods because we know we want to defeat this main bad guy in the deck here. Olok is going to begin trying to make progress on that. He's going to move over here, and he is going to search this deck. And he finds a surgeon. This is again an unlikely acquisition, but he is going to try to acquire her. This is at the House of Stolen Kisses. She looks seductive for a surgeon. We roll, he rolls a 1. She is not particularly pleased to see him and runs away. Oh, and let me do the blessing deck. That is it for his turn. We begin again with Lyrian. A blessing goes. We're getting pretty low. We're going to have to make some progress. Lyrian explores, and she has found another ruffian. It's good and bad. That means she can close this deck. That's nice if she wins this encounter. And she is going to use her pistol again, which gives her a D8 for her dexterity, a D6, and she is going to bury her harpoon underneath her, so she gets an extra D10. There we go. Plenty, that is well above the 7 needed to defeat the ruffian. It's 16, 21 plus her dexterity bonus is 24. So the ruffian is put into the box. We have closed this location. We get to look for the ally cards, which there's only one. It's another quartermaster, which again is impossible for us to actually defeat. But all the other items and weapons are put back into the box, and most of them are basic. So nothing exciting in that deck. She's going to attempt to convince the quartermaster to come along. The quartermaster is very, very smart and knows better than to get involved. So the quartermaster is going to say, "No way, Lyrian," and walk away. And that is it for Lyrian's turn. We move back to Olok. Oh, wait. On closing, you may examine the top card of any location deck. If it is a boon, add it to your hand. And there is here. Ah, nice. So she gets to add this dagger to her hand, which gives her another card she can discard if she needs to use her pistol. And we are closed. It is now time for Olak. Olak is going to draw a card from the deck. There are only a few left, and it is Nefty. Okay, let's see what we need to do here. Think about how to defeat Nefty. Before you act, choose a card from your hand and shuffle it into a random open location deck. So we will pick our Chain Shirt. We're going all out on this particular encounter. I'm shuffling it in. I can reveal any number of allies, add 1 to my check. The good thing about this, again, is that I can reveal the allies we have gotten here. I can actually bring them into my hand and use them. I do not think any of them are helpful for us, though. So we reveal these 2 plus 3. It means that we are going to try to defeat this person. I took the parrot because if we fail a check, we can try it again. We can re-roll the dice. He's going to use his Blessing of the Gods. Lyrianne is also going to use a Blessing of the Gods. And that gives us 1, 2, 3 d6 versus her 13. We have a total of 3 plus, so he needs a 10 or greater on these 3 d6. And with his parrot, he gets 2 chances. Let's see what happens. Oh, and he is just going to go ahead and take all of these allies in, because I'm not sure if he needs to have them in his hand. But he's going to. Here we go. 10 or greater. 4, 5, 6, 7. That is unsuccessful. The parrot will be buried, and we'll ignore the results and roll again. 5, 6, 7. That is unsuccessful. That does not bode well for our friend here. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 4 damage. So all of his hand is discarded. Nefty is shuffled back into the deck. Olak is not enjoying this particular part of the adventure. And the problem is, we don't have that ally bonus anymore. He did get another Blessing of the Gods, which will mean he can help Lyrianne if Lyrianne can survive. But Lyrianne will only get 1 roll. Let's move Lyrianne over here. She doesn't have much of a choice. Lyrianne will begin by exploring the top card. It's a Boatswain. There's no way. She rolls, doesn't succeed. She actually scares the Boatswain away, who runs away screaming from her horrible face. And that wasn't successful, but now she gets to reset her hand, so she draws the top card, and it is a Blessing of the Gods. That's what we needed. Now we can try again to defeat the main bad guy. Let's go. Olak is back. He searches. It's a sea hag. I can't play spells. I don't have Arcane or Divine. I do have Divine, actually. Let's go ahead and roll for Divine. He doesn't have any weapons, which the sea hag is quite strong for someone who doesn't have any weapons. So I think he's not going to banish a card. Okay, no matter what, if he loses this combat, he will have to discard his Blessing of the Gods. So he's going to go ahead and use it before the combat. He's going to go ahead and play his Cure spell because it does not have the attack trait. That will allow him to add 1d4 plus 1 cards back to his deck, just in case this goes poorly, which there is a big possibility. He rolls, he gets a 1. That's miserable, but he does get to add 2 cards back into his deck. Shuffling, he pulls out 2 cards and shuffles those into his deck. Okay, now he will not die no matter what on this encounter, so that's a plus, and he will. Now, he gets to try to recharge the Cure right now, because we have done what needs to be done. He needs a Divine of 8. He gets 1d8 plus 2, so he needs 6 or better. This is unlikely, but he's going to try. A 3. The Cure goes into his discard pile instead. Continuing on, he's going to use his Blessing of the Gods to try to defeat this thing. He gets to roll 2d12 plus 1. He does not have a weapon, so he doesn't get anything else special. He goes for it, and he has defeated the Sea Hag straight up. Okay, so the Sea Hag goes back into the box. Olak resets his hand. That's 2 cards. Now he has another weapon. That will be helpful for later, but no Blessing of the Gods, which means there's no way we can win, or almost no way. And we're back to Lyrian, who does have a Blessing of the Gods and Heartbreak Henson. I do not know exactly what to do here. I think what she is going to do is she's actually going to discard her dagger and her pistol. We know there are no more monsters. She's not going to explore. Let's go ahead and turn over this so we know that time is passing. She's going to draw her 2 cards. They are not what she wanted, but that's okay. Moving back to Olak. Olak is going to discard the cards he doesn't want, which he's going to discard a buckler and a longsword. We're no longer fighting. What we want are blessings of the gods. We did not get a blessing of the gods. So that'll be it for his turn. We move on. Back to Lyrian. She's actually going to pass a Blessing of the Gods over to Olak, which you're allowed to do at the beginning of your turn. And she's going to wait again, not do anything this turn, and draw a card. After she discards her leather armor. Now she's... Wait, she has the Potion of Glibness. She is not going to discard anything. She is going to instead search the deck. And she just found Nefti Anwesha. Choose a card and shuffle it back into the deck. Bye-bye leather armor. I think we just won. I forgot about the Potion of Glibness. I'll show it to you in a minute. Note that this is a Charisma Diplomacy check. So in order to defeat this check, she needs to succeed at a Charisma Diplomacy check. She has this card, Potion of Glibness. Banish this card and choose a character at your location to succeed at a Diplomacy check. Lyrian is going to succeed at a Diplomacy check. That means Nefti Anwesha has been convinced that we are people that she wants to work with and will maybe be our supplier from now on. And that means when we defeat the bad guy, we see about open locations. Can she move? There are no open locations. So this is automatically closed when we defeat the main villain. On closing, we can add a random card from our discard pile to our hand. That doesn't matter. We look at the 2 cards remaining in the deck. A chain shirt and leather armor. They can both go back into the box. We will pull them out again if we need them because they're basic. The Potion of Glibness is banished, but I suspect that Lyrian will pull that back into her deck as well. So we have just won the second adventure in the Pathfinder Skull and Shackles set. Nefti has been defeated because we were fortunate enough to have the Potion of Glibness that I forgot about in our deck. Notice that the scenario has a reward, gain all the allies in the ally pile. I'm going to pan up and show you there are no allies in the ally pile. That being said, because Olak has allies in his deck, we can select allies to keep, and the cards can be exchanged back and forth with Lyrian. I suspect that she is going to take the parrot, because the parrot is awesome. And we'll see how that goes for her. I do not know who she's going to discard yet, but it doesn't really matter. I think she'll probably keep Heartbreak Henson as well, though I'm not totally sure why, just because his card is fascinating and I think she's kind of in love with him. Since it's the end of the adventure, we have a few things left to wrap up. I wanted to start by looking at the Merchantman's ship. There are 2 plunder cards underneath it, and we don't know what these plunder cards are. So we get to turn them over now and see how we ended the game. And we found a pistol +1 and a potion of healing. This is exceptional. I'll show you a close-up. For your combat check, reveal this card to use your dexterity or ranged 1d6 +1. We can bury the card. If you did not bury this card, roll 1d6 or 1d12 if you are proficient with weapons. On a 1, shuffle this card into your deck. That's an interesting mechanic. And looking back at the original pistol in Lyrian's deck, it had sort of the same words to it. On a 1 or 2, shuffle this card into your deck. That's something we didn't do in the game and is a mistake. Take note of it when you're playing your own game. It wouldn't have affected the game too heavily. I think she only attacked one or two characters total. Maybe just one. So if she'd lost the pistol, it wouldn't have been that big a deal, especially since it would have been shuffled back into her deck. But it's something to keep in mind. We will be taking the pistol +1 and adding it to her deck. And now I'm going to show you the cards we're going to keep for her deck and the cards that we'll keep in Olaf's deck. The cards we ended up keeping for Lyrian are shown here. We went through the box and pulled out a Potion of Glibness and Thieves' Tools because we realized we need help defeating barriers at some point. We had selected the Parrot, who, as I mentioned, we managed to get because he is really, really good at times. We also took this pistol +1, and we kept the Harpoon, which we found on this adventure. Everything else is pretty much the same for her. For Olaf, we ended up taking the Morning Star that Lyrian found. We already had all of the other stuff shown here from the previous adventure. So, our party is ready to go, and we can do adventure number 3, which is called Dangerous Waters. And we'll get to that hopefully in the next few weeks. Tune in next time. We will be playing either a live version of the next round of Pathfinder, or we will move into Descent and do a live playthrough of that for you. Thanks for watching.